And welcome to a new episode of Digital Coffee Marketing Brew. And I'm your host, Brett Dice. If you please subscribe to this podcast on all your favorite podcasting apps. Leave a 5-star review. It really does help with the rankings. And let me know how I am doing. But this week I have Chuck Olsen with me, and he's the founder of Rockstar Media, is a media buyer, ad strategist, and marketing educator who's managed over $40 million in ad spend. With experience scaling brands across DTC, healthcare, music, and more, Chuck helps businesses grow with actionable paid social strategies, advanced attribution, ROI-driven campaign insights, and so much more. And so welcome to the show, Chuck.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and the first question is all my guests is, are you a coffee or tea drinker?
Coffee. I'm a big caffeine guy, so I guess I got to say coffee.
Do you have any specifics you like, or just whatever you can get your hands on?
It's kind of whatever. We have the Keurig. That's kind of the go-to normally, but yeah, any kind of coffee, honestly.
And I gave a brief summary of your expertise. Can you give the listeners a little bit more?
Yeah. So pretty much I have about coming up on 10 years now of media buying experience. I started off pretty small, just kind of dabbling around with Facebook ads. I started off in the music industry. I was also producing a lot at the time. Got into doing Facebook ads for artists and gradually got into doing it for labels as well. Went on doing that for a few years. Started to get some of my own clients, but wanted to go off into the agency world. So then I started, went off on some bigger agencies. I started working for doing ads for Steel, John Deere, AstraZeneca were my first kind of three at one of my old agencies, and then recently was for L'Oreal. So that was kind of the past about 4 years up, in that gap. And now I've branched off to start my own agency, focused in paid social media buying for brands and businesses across the US.
And how would you define the core principles of performance marketing for someone just stepping into this field?
So interpreting your results, especially when you're smaller, it's difficult because you don't necessarily have the scale of your results. So I think you have to know your offer, and that's kind of always what it comes down to, is the offer of your business. So that's like the starting point. Don't take your results too literally. I think you kind of have to be optimized. The whole spectrum is what I can say. So it's looking at the bigger picture of what you're doing and how your ads are playing into the bigger picture for your business. So it's a little bit harder as a smaller entrepreneur. You kind of have to do things around the whole process of getting a customer.
Gotcha. And what trends in performance marketing are you most excited about right now, and how do you see them reshaping the industry over the next few years?
Yeah, definitely. With pretty much every ad platform now is introducing their version of the ASC, pretty much consolidating your campaigns and your approach, and then just kind of being really focused on your objective. So with Meta, with ASC, you're really focused on the purchase objective. If your goal is sales for an e-commerce business, I think that's really going to transform how people are going to be buying their media for the next few years, or with now, but especially in the next few years, because it's going to take the focus off of essentially what you're targeting and put more of the focus on the end result that you want. So I think that's a really big shift that some people have been preparing for the past few years, but is going to be, everything around your tagging and attribution is going to become even more important than just targeting alone was for the past however long.
Gotcha. And when it comes to optimizing digital ad campaigns, what strategies have you found to be the most impactful for driving results?
So I try to split it up into the full journey from when someone sees your ad, when they click on your ad, landing on your page, to what's the rate of them adding to cart or doing whatever that next business action is for you, getting a lead. You would try to break it down every step of the funnel. So you might look at hook rate for a video or bounce rate for just a normal ad, from when someone's clicking to when they're, loading the page on your website, to then what percentage of people are clicking to add to cart, and then what from there adding the cart to converting, or whatever the equivalent is for your business. I think trying to break it down in that fashion every step of the way has been transformative, because you can really pinpoint, is it your ads, or is it what your ads are driving, or is it just your website and you need to do some conversion rate optimization there. So it really helps you, thinking of it that way and kind of segmenting that approach helps you kind of really get to the real problem area of your ads and what you're doing.
Gotcha. And are there specific tactics or approaches you've you've honed over time that has consistently improved campaign performance, especially in terms of targeting or creative execution?
A lot of it has come down to trying to get the highest quality traffic. I think from what I've seen, as these targeting options have gotten more broad, if you kind of just stick with the same landing page view results, or at least for paid social, if you just stick with the traffic objectives and the general video view objectives and stuff that everyone's been running for the past few years, or leading up to that, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because it's coming down to traffic quality and the quality of the people you are bringing to your business. And it just kind of takes the focus off of that. So I think my big approach has been really dialing into lookalikes with the highest value customers. What's your highest quality traffic, and aiming for objectives like that, multiple page loads or 50% page scrolls, and kind of formulating the objectives for the brand around quality traffic and then quality buyers. And that has kind of made a huge difference, and we've had a lot of success with that.
Got you. So, I mean, it seems like for the most part, you're saying try to mix it up and don't always just stick with the same old thing.
Yeah, I think that's especially where it's going. A lot of people in traditional media will preach awareness and share a voice and all that. And I think there's a place for that at the bigger brand level, but especially for a smaller business, you have to be more targeted with your dollars. So you're really looking at lead magnets, lower funnel stuff, mid to low funnel engagement tactics, and then finally what's driving the sales, and looking heavily at prospecting versus you're not doing as much retargeting as a smaller business, but looking at how those strategies are aligning to what you want and really going for it, because you don't really have the budget to be playing around and going for share of voice or whatever, unless you're a local business and you're only marketing within a certain target market.
Yeah, it seems like awareness for smaller brands isn't that great because it doesn't actually drive sales. It's just people are aware of you, which is great, but that doesn't really do much.
Yeah, and a lot of people buying on awareness objectives, they don't realize that Meta knows the people who are going to convert, or any of the social platforms do. So they're going to attribute that impression accordingly. So if you're just running a reach campaign, a lot of those times those impressions might not even fully load on the screen. So they might take a 20% load of the ad on the screen when you're scrolling on Instagram and put it as the last placement, and they count that as an impression. And that's going to be the inventory that they're constantly giving away for a reach objective. Video view objective, you could easily be falling in with people who are letting the video play on their screen and go to the next. So it's kind of like thinking in that way of what's their incentive, because they're trying to just fill their ad inventory, but they know the placements and they know the timing of the placements that are really going to get the conversions on average. So you got to keep that in mind, especially now with awareness buying and how things are shaping. They have so much inventory they just want to fill. So they're going to do what's going to incentivize them.
Yeah, and how do you balance experimentation with stability when scaling, especially in competitive digital ad spaces?
So a lot of the scaling will come down to creative stuff. So I try to break it down. I mean, how I've commonly been doing it has been breaking down, at least for purchases, has been breaking it down to 2 campaigns. So you have one that's kind of like your test campaign, but that's kind of your core, where you're bringing in new ad ideas, constantly testing creatives, angles, hooks, headlines, whatever it might be. You're testing it within that campaign. And then you have a separate dedicated campaign that's kind of like your scaling campaign. When an ad proves itself, you've had success, then you would shift it into that campaign. And that's generally how we've done it. Different objectives. So for some brands, it kind of depends on the brand and their product, the value of the products that they have and their average order values and stuff. But one of the strategies that has been really good there has been using target cost bidding in that scaling campaign, because especially for brands that fluctuate month over month a lot, it will only spend when it's getting that target cost conversion. So that's kind of helped a lot using that as a scaling objective. But it definitely depends on the brand and kind of the data you have available too. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for everyone, but that has been something that's worked well for a couple of brands.
And are there any like tools or platforms that you recommend to basically manage but also optimize the campaigns?
Yeah, so one that I really love, it's more of like a back-end management thing, but Supermetrics. I'm just a big pulling in data from the ad accounts and just being able to visualize it how I want helps me a lot. Tools within the ad account, I think, I've used weather targeting, weather.com, and there's also one more. Those have been really good because you can it integrates with your ad account and it will show ads based on the weather patterns that are going on in the locations that you're selecting. That's been good too. And then also just I know people have used ClickSees and stuff for fighting the bot traffic. And that's also a really big thing that's going to be, in my opinion, growing the next few years is bot traffic and combating against that. Not saying ClickSeize is necessarily the right answer, but I think keeping that in mind, it goes to the quality traffic conversation as well for me. But I think that's also another thing, is finding tools around what's going to help you get the highest quality traffic. And then also heat mapping on the site. Microsoft Clarity has been a game changer too, being able to see the session recordings of people landing on your site. There's paid alternatives to that, but I think especially until you have tens of thousands of page views every month as a brand or more, it just seems like it's a no-brainer to not have to be paying for like a heat mapping thing.
Yeah, it seems like one of the more basic tools to actually get, because it's just kind of showing you where people are mousing their pointer over or may click on something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so vital to be seeing that. The more that you can see the customer journey, the more informed you're going to be, because I think every brand gets to that point in their advertising where they're like, what's happening here? Why am I not getting sales? Why am I not whatever? And a lot of times you could probably trace it back to something you did in a site update or something, and heat mapping will help you see that. Breaking down your ad metrics into segments, like I was saying, will help you see that a little bit quicker too. But the heat mapping really, really helps you see how people are interacting with your site, how they're clicking, how long they're staying on, and also what percentage of them, because it also does track bot clicks and stuff like that too. So it does help you see what percentage of your traffic is potentially falling under bots, how we're interacting, where they're commonly clicking on the site. I love it. So I think it's a great thing that every single brand, especially in e-commerce, should be on.
And are there any underrated or emerging tools that you think marketers should be looking for or paying attention to?
I would say anything that's going to be helping towards quality site traffic. I can't say there's any upcoming tools off the top of my head, but also tools that are helping with generating ad creatives. So kind of AI image gen I have mixed opinions on, but I think that it's going to be really helpful as a tool. I don't think it's necessarily going to be something where you can just plop in an idea. A lot of people are doing this with ChatGPT right now. They're just kind of plopping in a product image and then saying, here's a reference ad, make an ad like this. I could see a place for that, but again, it goes back to AI being a tool in your creative process rather than just making the creative. Actually, Neil Patel put out a few interesting stats on how when people know that something's AI, it actually hurts your brand image and hurts your conversion rate on your ads. So I think just recognizing, or when you indicate something is AI created, it hurts your conversion rate. So I think these are things that you really want to pay attention to, and people are going to be able to figure out what is AI generated, especially in copy. Like if you look at any copy with, some people use M dashes, but I don't. So when I see copy with that, that's kind of the first place that my head goes to is, okay, who did this with ChatGPT? People can tell, and over time it's going to become more known, or people are going to become desensitized to what AI is creating, and you're going to need a more human connection. You're going to need a more human touch, things that AI can't necessarily give right now. But yeah, I would say tools around anything that's a tool with helping generate creatives that's AI based is going to be a good thing to look into as well.
Yeah, I do know that the video side of it's getting a little too realistic. VO3 is doing a pretty good job. Gling's 2.0 or 2.1 is doing it pretty good, but you can still kind of tell that they're not real.
Yeah, it's a weird texture of the video. I don't know how to explain it, but you can kind of tell that they're AI generated, definitely.
A lot of times it's the hands. They'll have like 6 fingers or like really big hands. On the videos, I don't know about pictures, but on the videos, you can tell that sometimes human hands, they don't really do very well with.
It's the limbs. I saw that too. It gives you multiple fingers or arms. It's funny the things that it does get wrong, and the spelling especially is hilarious.
What were the key decisions or pivots in a campaign that you led outstanding results, and how can listeners apply those lessons?
It's a little bit more brand-based, but one of the brands I was working with, I saw on one of the social platforms, I can only speak a little bit broadly about it, but one of the social platforms I had seen, it was indexing really high for view through conversions. So compared to click conversions, which are a little more desired because there are people clicking on your ad and then making a purchase, I saw it was indexing really high for view through conversions, which pretty much just means it's just showing someone an ad and seeing if they converted. They're not clicking on it. So it can be attributing from another platform that's really driving the conversion. But saw it was indexing really high with that. And kind of an answer was to be bidding towards click only, which is not necessarily something that people would recommend or I would recommend for every platform. It was just in that instance when I saw on a percentage basis, it was indexing much higher for view through conversions than any other platform. So that was the one time, and that actually helped a lot, and use that in combination with target cost bidding. And it was, I think, a 300% or so year over year difference in ROAS, and one of the top campaigns that the brand was running on the platform. So I think it just comes back to being able to know the brand that you're working on, know their products, and also just keep an eye on the trends that are going through platform by platform. Whether you're just running on one or you're running on every single social platform, it's really important to just see what's happening and why might that be happening. I think it's really easy to just look at something and be, ROAS is down this month, but why? What's driving that? Is it a site update? Is it something that's actually going on maybe with the platform algorithm? I know everyone on Reddit loves to say that, but sometimes it actually is just something that maybe not the algorithm, but what the algorithm's optimizing from. So it goes, again, view through conversions. If it's optimizing really heavy on view through conversions, it's going to be optimizing that back to the ad platform of people who are only viewing your ad that aren't clicking on it. A click is a more desired action. So if you have less of those for when the ad's optimizing, you're going to get a less desired audience that ad is shown out to. So it's like a whole feedback loop that you want to keep in mind, and all the parts add up to the whole.
What do you see are the biggest challenges in performance marketing today? And especially with the changing of the digital landscape, like what do you see like roadblocks for a lot of marketers?
Tracking, definitely. And I've seen this trend too, that a lot of the ad platforms are starting to have some difficulty with tracking, even with server side, with just under reporting, or again, goes to the view through conversion, whatever that might be. I definitely see some gaps with some of the platforms there. So I think that's going to be the biggest roadblock, is one, successfully and correctly setting up server-side tracking. So Conversions API is going to be the number one thing that I think every marketer should be learning, but they're going to make it easier to be implementing that. So what's next beyond that? It's going to be, how are you actually tracking your campaigns and optimizing, attributing, and also what kind of attribution settings are you using? Because now platforms are introducing or getting heavier on incremental attribution, maximize value, and those types of things. There might be a place for that in some brands' campaigns. And I think the strategy is going to become more around what are you doing around that, rather than just how are you targeting people, because the targeting is going to become automatic. If you have a campaign that you're running, instead of just typing in the interest segment that it normally would be, you can now get an adequate amount of conversions, create either lookalikes, or just let the platform optimize on its own if you're targeting the right campaign objective in your campaigns. And then that will feed back to the platforms and find your target audience for you on autopilot. So when you take that out of the picture, the biggest thing is the actual tracking of the conversions and how accurate that is and how that's getting done. So I think that's going to be the biggest focus moving forward for marketers.
And what do you predict the future of digital advertising will be in the next 5 to 10 years?
Honestly, I think really great. I think it's going to open basically the quicker that a lot of small businesses can start to get profitable with their campaigns, the more they're going to want to spend, the more that they're going to want to hire agencies, because you can make everything self-service. But I think, at least as someone who started off running his own ads and doing it for other people, but mainly it started with myself, once you get over that learning curve, you start to realize like, okay, I could use someone to run it, because you want someone who's on top of it every day. You want someone who's always looking at the changes of the platforms. You want someone who's helping source creatives and influencers or whatever, if that's part of your strategy, and also keeping an eye on the tracking and just kind of day to day in the ad accounts and making sure that things are always going well for you. If there are dips, looking into why that might be happening. There's just a lot more into it that when you start to run it yourself for a while, you're like, okay, I could probably use someone, because there is more. As automated as things are going to get, it's just going to create more things to have to be overseeing and looking at and keeping in check.
Yeah, you can't do it all on your own, apparently.
Yeah. It's like they'll try and they'll make progress with it, but I think where one door closes, another one will open, and where AI or automation might take away something, it's going to, overseeing that, or knowing how to implement that, knowing how to correct it, or knowing how to feed it to improve it, are going to be opportunities that open up from that as well.
And people listening to this episode, they're wondering, where can they find you online to learn more?
So Instagram at Rockstar Media. I'm also at Chuck on the Beat on Instagram. For me personally, you could also find me on LinkedIn. You could see my website, rockstarmedia.com. It's RCKSTR media.com. So not Rockstar like Guitar Hero, it's Rockstar like RCKSTR. And that's probably the main places I would send people. I have some other social channels I'm growing now, but as a new business owner, I've now become a content creator. So hopefully you start seeing some of my content.
All right. Any final thoughts for the listeners?
No, I think for small business owners, for anyone running ads, whether you're a small business owner or marketer, I think try to have sight into what's coming and where everything's going. And instead of trying to say or complain or say, well, I don't know why things are going this way or whatever, look forward, look at what's the new opportunities that are opening up. What are other platforms doing? I mean, Gary Vee calls it impression arbitrage or whatever he calls it in his book. It's day trading attention. So I think more like someone who is trying to just find that opportunity of arbitrage with getting the lowest cost of impressions to have the best results for your business. And then also moving forward, what are the opportunities that open up? So just be forward thinking, know that as a small business owner or as any marketer, whether you're working in an agency or whatever it is, just try to have that vision for a path forward for things and bring on a team.
All right. Thank you, Chuck, for joining Digital Coffee Marketing Brew and sharing your knowledge on the digital ad space.
Brett, thank you very much. It was great talking with you.
And thank you for listening. As always, please subscribe to this podcast on all your favorite podcasting apps. Leave a 5-star review. It really does help with the rankings. Let me know how I am doing. But join me next week as I talk to another great thought leader in the PR marketing industry. All right, guys, stay safe. Get to understanding what's going on with your website, with the heat maps and the digital ads and everything else in between. See you next week. Later.